In this video, I'm going to be talking about how I live for free and how you can too. So obviously, achieving financial freedom is important, should be your number one goal. I mentioned that quite a few times, but how do you do that? It's not always that obvious. And so I kind of broke down some of the key aspects that you need to look at. And the first one is really have a deep understanding of your expenses. This is the one thing you can control. So review your expenses, analyze your spending habits, find out where you are, overspending or where you're buying things that you don't really need. So how much do you spend on restaurants? How much do you spend on wine? How much do you spend on clothing, etc.? So really analyze the different categories and then determine where your money is going. And this may sound a little bit like the professional lifestyler Marie Kondo, but you want to find the expenses that really bring you true joy. So obviously there are expenses that you have to pay. You have to pay utilities, you have to make sure you have electricity and gas, make sure you have food on the table. But there are some other expenses out there that are not really that are discretionary. It's things that you can you don't have to spend on. These kind of expenses, which one are really bringing you true joy, that you're really enjoying it? So there are a lot of things, and for me, it was cable TV. At one point I was paying like $230 on cable TV with internet and all of that. And I didn't even watch TV. There was only a couple of shows that I was watching. But I was paying all these packages and all of that. And I basically canceled cable, kept the internet. And my bill went from $230 to $70 a month. So that is a significant, that's per month. So it's a significant difference in price. So really find out what you are what are some of the expenses that are really important to you, and then kind of budget them. In the end, you want to make sure that your revenue exceeds your expenses. This is pretty obvious, but there's still a lot of people that are overspending, and then they're just digging themselves a hole every day. Next, you want to find a passive income revenue source. So this is going to be some new revenue that's going to come in. You may have to use some money to invest in that, but the idea is that you're going to increase your revenue. And that increase in revenue doesn't mean that you're going to be able to spend more. The idea is that that increase in revenue will offset the current expenses that you have. And the idea is that once your passive income exceeds your living expenses, then you've achieved financial freedom. That's the key idea here. To which passive income investment should you look for? There are plenty of investment opportunities that generate passive income out there. The key is obviously finding the right one. First, I think it has to be something that you fully understand, and that it really works with your lifestyle and how you see yourself living. Because this passive income, you want to keep it for a very long period of time so that they continue to provide income and to pay for your expenses. So if this is something that you don't really understand and that it's not something that you're really that interested in, it's going to be a long journey. Then you want to pick the ones that have the highest and the most consistent returns. You don't want things that are fluctuating. You don't want a highest return on 1 month and then all of a sudden it's negative returns for 2 months and all of that. You want to feel comfortable. Once you achieve financial freedom, yeah, you can do something that is more speculative. That's fine with your free money. But when you're talking about really living on that passive income, you want to have something that's steady and consistent, something that you can really rely on. Ideally, you want an investment where you can use leverage, basically borrow money for most of the investment to buy that asset, and then put as little cash as possible and still obtain very good returns. Obviously, you're going to have hopefully you should have a very good cash on cash return. And then, since we're dreaming here, might as well think about tax benefit. Well, if you can find an investment out there that has tax benefits associated with it, then it's even better. So let's see which investment type has, I can use leverage, I have tax benefits like depreciation and all of that, and has consistent returns over, and historically you can see they have consistent return over 30, 50, 70 years. Well, one thing comes to mind is real estate. So this is why I pick real estate as a kind of a first go-to investment vehicle for achieving financial freedom. Then you want to calculate how much money you need in order to achieve financial freedom with that particular investment vehicle. So if you chose, for example, turnkey rental properties, you look at some of the turnkey rentals property, for example, if you put $20,000 down, you would get a certain property and then you would make about $3,000 a year in net cash flow. If you look at that, then you say, well, I need, $30,000 or $60,000 in net cash flow per year. So that means, 20 houses that you need to buy, and then you need 20 houses times $20,000. This is how much I need to achieve financial freedom. The other advantage, obviously, with that's using leverage, and also you have the other advantage that you can use depreciation to offset this net cash flow. So this is the other advantage of that. So even if you make $60,000 in net cash flow, you don't pay taxes on $60,000 because it would be offset. Most of it would be offset by depreciation on the property. So this was about identifying a passive income investment vehicle. Next is about finding, where do you find the money for that? So now you've identified also kind of how much money you need. So where do you find that money? Obviously your bank account is number one, but you can also look at your 401k or other retirement account. These are not as obvious to invest from, but there are some special 401k accounts that you have to go and set up, where you can invest directly from your 401k into a real estate property. The other thing is look for equity that you might have in other assets, like your home. If you own your home, for example, is there any equity available out there to invest in real estate? And then you want to run the numbers and really pay attention to these numbers. So many people are not running the numbers, and they're deciding a little bit too much on instinct and emotion. Numbers are important. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of how we actually achieved and were able to basically live for free and achieve financial freedom. And really it's because we ran the numbers, and we had to literally convince ourselves that this was, but we looked at the numbers and it just made sense to do it. So I'm going to give you some examples here. For most Americans, your home is your primary store of equity. This is where a lot of your funds are located, a lot of your equity is located, and so many people rely on that home to retire on. They say, oh, it's going to be paid off, when I retire, so I can live for free. Well, having a home doesn't mean you live for free. You still have to do the repairs, you still have to pay the insurance, you still have to pay the property taxes, and these could be somewhat unknown, so especially in California. What is important is, it's kind of like having a bigger plan, and make sure that you plan for your future correctly. Having your main equity or your main retirement plan to be your home is not really a good idea. But let me run this scenario by you. And this is the story of so many homeowners. The numbers that I'm going to use for my example here are consistent mainly on somebody that lives on the West Coast. But I mean, you can adjust if you live on in the Midwest or anywhere else in the United States. So that would still work as well. It's just the number would be slightly different. So let's say you bought a house in 2005 on the West Coast, so let's say San Francisco Bay Area, for $750,000 roughly, and you had to put 20% down, right? So that's $150,000. So that took a lot of sacrifice to come up with $150,000 so that you can buy a house. This is what people are facing right now in the Bay Area in California. They keep saving more and more money to buy a house, and they don't seem to catch up. During your ownership of the house, you obviously made renovations, you changed the roof, you changed the bathrooms, you renovated the bathrooms, the kitchen, hardwood floor, you name it. You did about $300,000 or maybe even more in renovations over the 15 years that you own the property. So how did you pay for these repairs? Well, some of them you paid out of cash, but others, more significant renovations, you put on a line of credit on the house, home equity line of credit, or at some points, as was very popular and still very popular, is to refinance your property. As the property value went up, you would take out more and more money out of your house to do something else with it, to do renovations, etc. So that's what a lot of people did, and that's what we did as well. So you start on a mortgage of $600,000, but as you do more renovations, then you refinance your property, then you buy a car, you do the renovations, then you have a line of credit, and then you max that out as well to pay for additional renovations that you want to do. And then you look today, and then you still have a balance of $700,000 in your mortgage, and you have your $200,000 line of credit that's maxed out. So now you have about $900,000 that you own the property. But the value of the property is, let's say, worth $2 million, right? So that's a significant amount of equity. That's over $1 million in equity that's sitting there, not doing anything. And for me, like, I always envision this equity kind of just sitting around on the couch. And here I am going to work every day, going to my clients and all of that, and then I would find coming home and I would see my equity just sitting on a couch watching TV. I've been working my ass off the whole day, and here my equity is sitting right there watching TV on my couch. So that's kind of how I envisioned my equity not working for me, and I was determined to have my equity work for me. So you could refinance the property, right? So let's say another 80% of your $2 million, you can get $1.6 million, you owe $900,000, you end up with $700,000 cash after you did the refinance. The problem is that your mortgage payment now went from $3,000 a month to $7,500 a month. It feels like you are kind of going further away. You've worked so hard to reduce your expenses only for the things that are bringing you true joy, and all of a sudden, in order to get $700,000 out, you have to pay an extra $4,500 in mortgage payment. That's a lot of money. You kind of looked at your expenses to kind of get rid of a $200 a month cable bill, and now you just added on top of that $4,500 in mortgage, so you can get the equity out. But that's fine. So if we go back just as a metric here, so if $20,000 I mentioned, like in my turnkey rental properties, $20,000 gives us $3,000 or a year, or $250 a month. So how many of these houses do you need in order to kind of just pay off that particular additional mortgage payment? The answer is about 15 houses that you would need to do at $20,000 a piece. Then you end up, that's about $350,000 that you have to put in down payment for these houses, for these units, get financing, and then pay for that extra gap. Out of that $700,000 that you just got out cash after refinancing your property, half of that will have to go to investment just to pay the additional mortgage payment that you have to do for that, to get that refinancing. So basically, when this whole refinancing exercise is only bringing you an additional $350,000 that you can invest to achieve financial freedom and live for free. So when I ran these kinds of numbers in my particular situation, it didn't make a lot of sense. I would significantly increase my debt to income ratio. I was significantly increasing my mortgage payment. So all of that seemed to be going kind of the wrong direction. But then you have to figure out what you really want. Do you want to own a home? How important is that for you? And then you kind of ask, like, do I prefer to have financial freedom and be able to travel in different places and not having to worry about work? Or do I want to own my home? How important is that? And for me, the home was a little bit of a stressor. There was so much equity that was in that house, that single investment. If anything happened to the real estate market or anything, we could be in serious trouble because I was really relying on that to achieve what, financial freedom, be able to retire and everything. Then I was thinking, like, why would we wait to at retirement, 65 years old or whatever, to come up to use that equity? Why not use that equity now? Because then we thought, okay, well, maybe it's because, well, the house is a great investment. But when you look at the return on your investment, so you had like $750,000 initial investment, actually $150,000 in cash, and then you were able to sell it, let's say, at $2 million. But you had to put like $300,000 in renovations, blah, blah, blah. You end up with like 5% annualized return. That's an okay return. It's not that great return. At least it's above inflation. Can I invest that money in something that would generate much better return? And the answer is yes. It's not that difficult to find better returns than 5%. So this is why we decided to sell our home a few years ago, so we haven't regretted it since. But before you go and sell your home, again, you want to make sure that you run the numbers, make sure that you've identified a passive income investment that you are familiar with, that you can use leverage, that you can, that has hopefully some tax benefits and all of that you truly understand, that it fits your lifestyle. You want to identify all of those things and then make sure that all of that works before obviously selling your home. So that was critical, because as soon as we sold the house, then we basically invested in Martel turnkey. We doubled down on all the properties and bought a lot more properties, and we also bought apartment buildings. And when all was said and done, we were able to basically generate a lot of passive income that offset our living expenses. But then some people would say, oh, well, yeah, but then you have to pay capital gains tax on that property, so you can't use 1031 for that because it's your primary residence, and I don't want to pay capital gains tax. I don't think it makes sense. We didn't end up paying capital gains tax. Well, technically we did, but it was because we bought an apartment building. We used accelerated depreciation, and we were able to offset all the capital gains with that bonus depreciation. So we didn't have to pay any of the capital gains tax. We couldn't use 1031 exchange or anything else. So we were able to do that with our home. So we didn't have to worry about that. Then the next question I would have is from people is like, well, isn't it more expensive to rent a home than just own your home? Or, home rentals, house rentals are not that nice, or they're not renovated, or whatever. That would be logical, right? But in reality, this is not what's happening. The expenses on the house that we owned in San Francisco Bay Area was about $6,000, including mortgage payment, property taxes, insurance, blah, blah, blah. This was a 4-bedroom, 2-bath home, 1,700 square foot, with nothing in a small neighborhood, a nice neighborhood, but really nothing that that outstanding beside that. I was able to rent a house, 2,400 square foot, 4-bedroom, 3-bath, with a view of San Francisco Bay Area. Everything was fully renovated, very clean, professional kitchen, everything was phenomenal, and it was a much better house than what we had just sold, and the rent was $6,000. So the investment that I made in Martel Turnkey as well as in the apartment building would more than pay for the rental of that house. So now, instead of having $6,000 in expense, just for the house, I had $0 in expense for the house because my investments were paying for the rent. And in fact, my investment actually paid for way more than the rent, and I was able to retire from independent consulting that year. This is how I am able to live for free, and how you can too. So I put a lot more details in my books, Stop Trading Your Time for Money. If you want a free copy of my book, the Kindle book, that book is currently being sold on Amazon for $10. But if you want a free copy, go on marteleric.com/giveaway. Just give me your email address and I will send you an e-copy of my book from Amazon, and then you'll be able to enjoy it. So I share a little bit more my stories, and then kind of like how I achieved financial freedom, and then give you all that you need in order to do the same. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure that you click the thumbs up, that you like this video. If you are interested in financial freedom, if you're interested in real estate investing or any other type of investing, if you're interested in the entrepreneurship or business, feel free to watch the other videos on my channel, and then just remember to like my videos and subscribe to be notified whenever a new video is being posted. So thank you very much.